Altadena, After the Fire, is an Urban One podcast dedicated to chronicling the community's journey toward recovery. Each episode provides up-to-date information from our partners in the Los Angeles area, offering in-depth interviews and on-the-ground reporting. We will explore personal stories of loss and survival, examine the environmental and political factors contributing to the disaster, and discuss ongoing efforts to rebuild. We are joined by Tawala Sharp, who is a media and podcast producer in the Los Angeles area who grew up in Altadena and has been affected personally by the fire. So first of all, welcome to Altadena After the Fire podcast.
Thank you for having me, Brother Colby. I truly appreciate the time, man.
So before we kind of get into what happened with the fire, can you talk a little bit about growing up in Altadena? This was a very unique community that I didn't really know about Altadena until the fire. And I know a lot about Black communities around the country, and I learned so much recently. So talk a little bit about what it was like growing up and a little of the history of the city.
Altadena, for those who know what it's like growing up in a small town, is what Altadena was. Altadena is a city nestled right at the top of Pasadena, a city famous for the Rose Parade and the Rose Bowl. Well, Altadena is a city nestled right in the mountains, right up against the hills, where it is a deep, rich African-American community. Back in the days in the 60s, Altadena is one of the few cities in the entirety of California that offered home loans to African-Americans who came to California to settle and didn't say want to live in the South Central area. Altadena is an area that had work because of all of the fruit trees and the groves, avocado groves, orange groves, just all these different agricultural opportunities for work and things like that, but also to own a home. It is a community where several African Americans who were from the quote unquote movement, be it the Black Panthers movement or the US organization, came to settle and raise their children. And it is a community where I say you put me anywhere in the city blindfolded and give me 5 steps and I will know exactly where it's at, because that is what you know about Altadena, the landmarks, the history of the city. It is so entrenched and enriched in all of our souls that we love it like we love our family. That's what Altadena is for many of us that come from that area. It is a family community, and that is why we cherish it so deeply.
So in your history, have you ever had wildfires before? Because it seemed like a pretty condensed community and you've been living there for a while. So just what was life like with wildfire season, which comes along in California around the beginning of the year?
You know, what's interesting is in Altadena, we have seen wildfires in the hills. We have seen wildfires before in the hills, but they've been far enough away where honestly, none of us ever really thought about it. And that is why when you look at why so many members of the Altadena community are suffering because they did not get fire insurance, it's because it's like one of those things where like, it's never going to affect us. A few of us got earthquake insurance, but we just did that because, yeah, well, that's what we feared most in California, period, is the earthquakes. But a wildfire? No, not in Altadena, because there's no way. It just, for some reason or other, we never thought it would ever come to us, even though we've seen wildfires in the distance. We've seen wildfires in the San Bernardino Hills, but never in our area did we ever think a wildfire would come.
So talk a little bit about your house that you grew up in, and because you lived in one part of Altadena, then you moved to another part of Altadena, but talk about where you most recently lived and your community and your neighbors and what it was like living on your block.
Living on my block is like living on a street where you literally could leave your doors unlocked, believe it or not, in California, because my mother started the neighborhood watch and everyone watched out for everyone. And it's interesting because living on my street now for the past, I'd say 15, 20 years, it's interesting to see people walking their dogs. It's interesting to see people jogging and outside playing and the sound of children running around the neighborhood, because growing up, it was a hotbed of gang activity. It
Really?
really, really was. We, in Altadena, on the street that I lived at prior to where I live now, we called it the corner of gangbang and get shot. There was one point in time where Altadena had the highest murder rate in California because it was such a small area and because the gang activity was so rife. It was Bloods and Crips. It was every other night there was shooting. We never thought we would come to a point in time where there was just quiet in the neighborhood. All those young brothers who used to gangbang, we're all grown now. Everyone who used to be a part of that, we now have houses. I know people who spent their lives banging who say, you know what, I'm gonna get out of this, got into construction, built a house in Altadena, things like that. And so it's interesting looking at my neighborhood and looking at the diverse community I lived in. It's one of those things where we never thought we would see anyone other than Black people in Altadena. We had Black people, we had Latino people, but now on my street, we have, Asian Americans, we have, Caucasians, Black folks. It's a little melting pot of individuals living in the community. And it is actually nothing but love. We wave at each other. We go across the street. We could borrow a cup of sugar. Literally, I kid you not. We really, really could, because small town America in a big city. So it's like you're surrounded by Los Angeles, you're surrounded by the area, but you can always go home. That was the beauty of it, just getting off the freeway, driving up the hill, seeing the mountaintops and knowing, man, I'm home. I'm home.
So take me to January 7th. The Eaton fire is started in the hills. And initially, tell me about when you found out about the fires just in the hills, and what was your response to that?
At the time when the fires first broke out, I was actually on the air producing a news talk show that I produced, and we were covering the Palisades fires. And we were talking about how serious the Palisades fires are, and we were doing wall-to-wall coverage of the Palisades fire. Then all of a sudden, we got a report that said that there was a fire in Eaton Canyon. And my very first thought was, oh my God, I know that area. That's like about 3.5 miles from where I live. And one thing I knew about the Eaton Canyon area is it's pure dry brush. We would drive by the area every other day if we were going to the movies, if I was going to my brother's house, who lives right across the street from where Eaton Canyon is. I know the area. And I said to myself, wow, that is nothing but dry brush. Dry brush because of how dry it's been in Southern California. We've been needing rain like you wouldn't believe. So I know for a fact, if there's a fire in the Eaton Canyon area, it's going up like a box of matches. I knew that off the top. But even still, I was at work and I said, it's 3.5 miles away. There's a lot of mountain ridge. There's a lot of communities, a whole area. There's a fire station not far from the area. It's going to be a minute before there's anything close to being a danger for me and my family.
Yeah, did you have any type of fire prevention plan? Did you ever think of that for yourselves or your community or your neighbors? Did y'all ever think like, oh man, if it ever happens, we should do this?
No, not at all. Again, farthest thing from our mind, period. Never occurred to anyone in my community. And I kid you not a single person that lives in my neighborhood or anyone that I talk to, I grew up in the area, so I am less than 6 degrees of separation from anyone in the city. I mean, you go 2 people down and you either know me or you know someone that knows me. That's how close we are in the city. No one that I've talked to, people whose entire family, when I say family, their homes, their mother's homes or the father's home or the grandparents' home, all burned down. No one ever thought for a second that this is something that would ever affect us. So none of us really had a plan. Again, I'm on the air talking about the fire and saying, hey, we're keeping our eyes on this Eaton fire. Oh, and the host that I work with, he said on air, hey, T, if you need to break out, you break out, we'll be fine. And we, we're kind of like, kind of halfway joking. I was like, I'll be fine. Get off the air. And as soon as I got off the air, I got an alert that said there's an evacuation order in the Altadena area. I said, oh, snap. Okay, Let me go to the house and make sure everything is okay. I'm driving to the house, and driving from the studio in Burbank to Altadena, it was like driving through a wasteland because the wind is whipping it had to be like 100 miles an hour. This wind was insane. There are trees blowing on the freeway. There are trash cans on the freeway. It looks like I'm driving through some type of video game, and there are no lights. Power's out everywhere. Through every city I'm driving through, there is no power. I get off the freeway in Altadena, there are crashes everywhere because there's no street lights, nothing. There's just cars I see wrecked. I'm like, okay, this is crazy. I make my way up to the house. My mother's at the house. I'm like, Mom, what are you doing? You got to get out of here. She said, I'll be fine. The fire's far enough away. Your brother's on his way to come and get me. I'm okay. Just maybe pack a few things just in case. And I said, you know what? You're right. I packed maybe a week's worth of things only because I said to myself, it may just be a minute before we get to come back because the power was out and, they may block off streets for danger or whatever. I said, but in the back of my mind, I'm thinking there's no way that I am going to be kept out of the community for any length of time. There's no way the fire is going to reach us. In the back of my mind, I'm like, this will pass by. I'll be back in the morning. I just packed maybe 5 days worth of clothes, meds, a couple of electronic things I may need. I'm out. I told my mom, I said, hey, if it gets worse, make sure you get out of here. By the time I got back to the station, this is maybe 30 minutes. By the time I got back, it was a mandatory evacuation. My brother is calling me, freaking out, saying, oh my God, where are you at? Why did you leave, Mom? The fire is literally 2 blocks away. I'm like, what are you talking about? I just left. The fire was literally coming at him sideways. It was blowing through the community like you would not believe. And at that point, they got out of the city and I'm just sitting at the station. I'm at the station all night, like trying to cover this, trying to figure out what's going on.
Right.
It wasn't until we got a chance to go back the next day and I'm with my ex-wife and she's, doing all of her talking to the police. Like, we got to get up there. We just left a couple of things up there. We got to get up there. Just we'll be real quick. We managed to get to one street where officers let us go up the hill. They said, hey, you're going up at your own risk, but we'll let you up if it's just for a few minutes. You got to get out of there. We get up there and Colby, let me tell you, from being there the night before, even though it's all dark and it's just smoke and I can see the glow of the fire in the distance. Yeah. From the night before to the next day, when I tell you my neighborhood was for the most part gone. I kid you not. There are fires everywhere. There are houses. When I'm driving up the street to get to my house, I damn near didn't know where I was at because some of the landmarks were gone. It was just flattened. There were just chimney stacks and some front-facing walls, but stuff was burned down. This is in a matter of about 24 hours, and houses had been burned down from the roof to the ground. Mansions, gigantic houses. There are street signs that are melted and bent and twisted. I'm like, where am I at? I make it over to what I assume is Fair Oaks, the street that I live on, and I drive up, and I'm like, oh my God, the car wash is burned down. All the liquor stores are burned down. The church is burned down. There's like a little mini car lot where they're selling like cars, $1,000 a pop. There are just a row of cars, all just crispy, burnt up. There's a group home burned up. The senior center, gone. All of these things are gone in a matter of 24 hours. I get to my street and there are some firefighters on my street and they're putting out some embers in my front yard and they're doing their best to save, my neighbor's yard. And they're like, hey, what are you guys doing here? I'm like, I just came to get a couple things. I need some medicine. It's real important. I got to get it. They're like, hurry up, get in, get out. As I'm going in, I'm looking down in my driveway. I'm seeing my neighbor's garage burning up. My neighbor's garage is up in flames. And I'm like, oh, wow. Okay, this probably means that my house is going to go. I get back to the front yard and even the firefighters that were there, the first responders there were like, sir, I'm sorry, you got to go. We're leaving. We're being called out of the area. We've got to go. And I'm talking to my ex-wife and she's like, T, I'm so sorry. This, you're right. This place is probably going to go. The house is probably going to go because I'm looking across the street. Houses are gone. I'm looking across the main street. Houses are gone. I'm looking in through my backyard. I can see the houses on the street behind me on Altadena Drive. They're all in flames. Everything around me is in flames. There's smoke everywhere. And I'm thinking to myself, this is the end of my neighborhood. This is the end of Altadena. I get in my car and we leave. And it's not for maybe another 2 weeks before I return to find, I kid you not when I say 80% of this city of Altadena burned to the ground. It looks like a third world country. It looks as if the city was carpet bombed. Literally, buildings, houses, everything is just rubble. The street that I grew up on, every house on that street, every single house on that entire little cul-de-sac is flattened. Not a single house from anyone that I grew up with. Some 20 families that I knew living on that street, every home is gone. The cemetery was on fire. The park was on fire. I mean, it was something out of a nightmare.
What are some of the other things you remember? Like what did it smell like?
It smelled like a combination of smoke and toxic chemicals, which is very weird. It smelled as if like they were burning a combination of bleach and paint and something else. But when I first got out the car, and I remember I vomited when I went up there like a week later. I got out the car and I vomited just because the smell was so overwhelming and it's still in the air. It's almost it's unbearable. It is unbearable, the smell that is up there. And even now, all these weeks and you know, a little over a month later, it still smells horrid. Now, we were truly, truly blessed in that my house is still standing, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and a half houses on my block are still standing. Houses all behind us burned down. All the garages, except for mine, all the garages on the side of the street that I live on were all burned to the ground. My neighbor, he left his Tesla in his garage. Tesla blew up. Car blew up. Everything blew up. Everyone else, they lost their garages. But still, you've got a row of like 6.5 houses that are still standing. Everything around it behind us is gone. Everything across the street from us and 2 or 3 blocks down is gone. Then if you look a mile up, everything is gone. You look a mile down, everything is gone. To the right, to the left, everything is gone. You may see a house here and there, but it doesn't exist anymore. It really, it brings the strongest of men to tears just driving up the streets when you think about how much is gone. The park that we grew up going swimming to, it's all the structures there are burned to the ground. You know, all the grass is just black. And when you think about the one supermarket that we had in the city, how that's just, you know, pretty much burned down. All the burger places, all of the little restaurants that have been there since before I was born, gone. And you think about that. You think about all those things that were built up by these independent business owners, these small business owners, how all their storefronts are gone. Steve's bike shop, the pet shop, the hardware store in Old Town Altadena. All these staples in the city are gone, and all that is left now is rubble and this stench that reminds you. I went into my house to try to itemize a few things, you know, for insurance. We went in and tried to catalog some of the things that are left, and I'm saying, we got to throw all this away. There's no way. You can't tell me you can take that smell. It's almost like the smell of this stuff the smoke and the toxicity is baked into the walls. It's baked into the fibers of the couches, all my jackets, suits, you know, anything that was left in there. It smells like that wretched fire and toxic smoke smell.
Tawala and many others now have to take on the burden of rebuilding their lives and homes in Altadena. Listen up next to hear the financial and mental journey to get through life in Altadena after the fires. So you didn't lose your house, but you really kind of lost your house, basically, like the life that you led in the house. So how did your insurance company handle this? Because you didn't physically lose the house, but the damage, it makes it uninhabitable. So what happened with insurance? Talk about that.
We are still dealing with it. And I love how in the beginning, when the cameras were there, all the insurance companies were just, we are here with you. We are here to help you solve this. We are here to help you remedy this situation. They were there. As soon as the cameras go away, and as soon as it's not being talked about on radio as much out here, all of a sudden it's like, we can't help you, or go to talk to FEMA. FEMA says, go talk to your insurance. Insurance says, hey, better yet, go over to Red Cross. It is that ring around the rosy game of bureaucracy that we're dealing with now. When you have an insurance company that's telling you, hey, it doesn't smell that bad. And it's like, you SOB, how on earth are you really trying to tell us it doesn't smell that bad when you're in here vomiting from the smell?
Yeah.
It is ridiculous. The amount of red tape and bureaucracy that we're dealing with, and not just us, but our neighbors. And we're at a point where the government, politicians are saying, hey, you should not be living within 100 feet of a burn zone. And we're surrounded with it within 30 feet in every direction, a burn zone. So when you have the state saying, no, you should not be living there until it is all cleared out, but you have your insurance company saying, I don't know, maybe you could go back. Maybe if we come in and put some air fresheners up, it is insane, the level of bureaucracy and red tape that we're going through, how FEMA is saying, we are here for you after you finish your claim with your insurance, and insurance is saying, oh, well, it's going to take some more time, and we're going to have to wait and see. We're waiting to see what the city is saying, and this, that, and the other. This is that hard part. This is where it goes beyond all of the groups that are out there in the city, doing food drives, doing clothing drives, and handing out toiletries and some essential necessities, warm meals. God bless every single organization that's out there doing that. But this is where those of us who live in the city, who may have homes still standing, but really and truly those who have had their homes burned to the ground, this is where the city needs the most help, as far as having advocates who are going to be able to work with the insurance companies to make sure everyone is whole, having attorneys to help sort through all the legality of what's next, what steps are next, because as it has been proven, this fire is at the fault of Southern California Edison. This is not conjecture.
And that's the power company, correct?
That's the power company that was warned. That was warned weeks and months in advance that there was going to be a severe storm coming to the area and they need to power down. This is not me thinking that they should have done this. They were warned. They were told. They did not. And there is proof, there is video showing one of their transformers exploding and launching sparks into Eaton Canyon. That is facts. This is their fault. They could have prevented this by totally powering down, and they didn't. And so now we're just out. We are SOL. We are out. And that is a problem. And now we just got word from the state that the cleanup efforts in Eaton alone, not in the Pacific Palisades or anywhere else, but just in our area, in Altadena, they have given us a prospective cleanup date when they feel that they will be done. Cleanup means that they're getting all the toxic debris out. That means that they are coming in and leveling all of the remaining structures that have had all the damage and digging all that out to the very foundation. By the time this is done, Colby, they have said that they should be finished by about January 18th of 2026.
Wow.
So we are supposed to do what for the next year? Right. What are we supposed to do for the next year, Colby? This is where we're at right now. These are the meetings that we're going to right now. The meetings that we were at yesterday, the meetings that we will be going to next week, is trying to get some answers. What are we supposed to do for a year?
So your insurance so you don't even have, you couldn't live in your house anyway. You don't have any kind of services like water or power or anything, right? The water has been turned back on, but there is a do not use order in place for the water. So they're saying do not drink, do not bathe in the water, because the water is still toxic. They have not purified the water treatment center in Altadena. So it's like whether the water was on or not, it wouldn't matter. Maybe for flushing the toilet, that'd be about all you could do with the water, because there's a do not boil order as well. So you can't even boil the water for use. You can't do anything with the water. Electricity was just turned on a couple of weeks ago. So, we were able to turn our alarm back on, because for the homes that are in the area, though the electricity is on and we can access that, there are still no lights in the neighborhood. So the neighborhoods are just black because so many of the power poles and the lights in the area, they all burn down.
So it's just black. So now we've actually put in an order with the Altadena sheriff to patrol the area. We've actually requested that they patrol the area because it is very, very dark. And you would think that those homes that may still be standing are ripe for looters or anyone else who may say, well, hey, the house is still standing. Let's go and see what we can get in there.
Where are they taking the debris? Because that's a lot of debris. So where are they dropping that at? Right
now, word has it that they're taking the debris and dropping it off in the valley, in the Granada Hills area and the West Hills area. They're just planning on taking all this debris to makeshift landfills that they have. So they're taking all the carnage that happened in Altadena and just dumping it in another community to deal with. That doesn't seem right.
Yeah, how does that affect their water and their air and
all really of that?
Scary.
Yeah, all of that.
So you really, even though your power is on, you can't really use the water. Are you able to stay at your house, or you can't even stay there?
No. We couldn't stay there if we wanted to. If we wanted to stay there, we couldn't, because you cannot deal with the smell. The smell is almost smells as if that toxicity it's now baked into the walls. It's like it's just in the house. We've opened up all the doors, lit some incense. We've done everything we can on our end, but
because we're like 7 weeks past the fire. So like it's still, is it the same level of smell, or is it less?
No, it is. It is inside of the house. It absolutely is. And we've gone several times to open up the windows, leave the doors open for the day, and it's still nothing has managed to dilute that smell.
So what did the insurance company say to you about the house? So like at this point, if you can't live there, are they helping you with money to stay at a hotel? Like if the city is saying that you can't stay there, what type of support are you getting from your insurance company?
The insurance company right now, they do have most everyone, including my family. They're giving us a month-to-month stay at a hotel. So so it's month to month staying at a hotel. My family was just moved out of the hotel that they were staying at. They're kind of like they were moved somewhere else. So I'm currently staying with my ex-wife and my mother. She just had to go and stay with my brother for a little bit while they're preparing to put her in a different place. Mm-hmm. So that's the thing. So it's like they've ended the stay at the first hotel, and now they're saying, give us until Monday. This happened on Friday. They're like, we'll have you in another place on Monday. So now she's staying the weekend with my brother. And it's kind of like, so we had to pack up everything at the hotel she was staying at, take it over from my brother's house, and then they'll put her into another place on Monday. And so this is kind of just how they're doing it.
So realistically, what's the long-term game plan for your house? Because have you talked to any experts about the smell? Is it a possibility that the smell would go away or dissipate? Or, I mean, what are experts outside of insurance? Because they're just going to tell you it's going away. But is there any experts outside of that have given you any input on what's going to happen?
We have talked to several different companies. We have actually put in a bid with a toxicity expert, someone who will be able to come down and take samples from the fibers of the house, take samples from the wall, take samples from the roof, take samples even from the flooring and from all over to let us know on a molecular level how baked in is the toxic smoke that burned in the area. Because remember, these aren't just homes that burn down. This is every chemical that any of these homes had inside. So if you had, a garage full of paint, bleach, whatever, all of that went up in smoke too. If you had gas cans in your garage, all that went up. So all of that was mixed into the smoke. And from the experts we've talked to, for those of us who have homes standing, the material of our houses it essentially expanded during the fire. And once it all cools down and settles back down, now you have that toxic chemical, that's those smoke molecules that are now baked into the structure of the house. And it is possible that over time that will fade. But if the insurance company was, as they were planning, talking about bringing in an HVAC system to come and just vacuum out the house and basically get the smell out, it's almost imagine if you're a smoker and you're smoking in your car and you want to go and try to sell that car. You may be able to go and take that car and get it detailed. And they may be able to shampoo the seats and the flooring and all that. And it may get that smoke smell out. But yeah, I promise you, first time that driver turns on the heater, they're going to be like, what the hell is this smell? That's what we're being told is going to be the status of the house. We've been told by some companies that we may need to gut the walls and put new walls up. We've been told that we're definitely going to have to remove all the insulation and redo maybe the roofing because it's kind of baked in. So we've gotten a whole bunch of different opinion from various experts on what needs to be done. And right now, of course, insurance is fighting the need to do these things. So we're trying to figure out what we're able to do with our own finances and what we're actually going to be able to force the insurance company to do as far as guaranteeing and making sure that the house that we're going back to is the house that we left. That's the most important thing, is that we are made whole in that sense. And that it's not just we have to go back and just deal with the faint smell of smoke. No, because the house didn't smell like that before.
Right.
And not only that, how would we arguably return and live in a house right now if over the course of the next year, there's going to be nonstop construction? There are going to be, Army Civil Corps engineers traveling back up and down the streets, hauling all of that waste. That's a project that may take them the next few months to do. And then the process of rebuilding these homes, we can't live in the middle of a construction zone.
Right.
We just
you're really talking about 2 or 3 years at this point. If they're not
at least.
Yeah, clean it until January of next year, then you have to deal with it just sounds, how are your neighbors doing? Have you been in touch with most of your neighbors?
We have started a group. We have started a group especially for our block where we are constantly talking about, and all of us to a person are saying the exact same thing. Many of us had the exact same insurance with State Farm because that was one of the few companies in California, much less in Altadena, that was still maintaining fire insurance. A lot of companies got out of California because of fire season, because what? While other places have hurricanes and tornadoes, California with these fires, we're out because the fires are so damn destructive and they level everything, from Paradise and some of the different areas that have been burned down because of wildfires here in California. A lot of insurance companies fell. One that stayed, of course, being State Farm. They're the ones where many of us in our neighborhood are dealing with. And so we're all pretty much saying the same thing of what is it that we're going to do? Many people, as heartbreaking it is, are talking about maybe having to move. And this is something else that's happening right now in Altadena, where many of these individuals who've lost their homes are just, I don't have 2 and 3 years worth of money saved up where I can just wait for the house to be rebuilt. I can't, I know I put my blood, sweat, and tears into this home, but I can't stay. And now you've got all of the predatory, builders and construction companies saying, hey, we'll take this property off your hand. I know one individual that sold their property for, I believe they just sold the land for $900,000, I believe.
Okay.
I believe it was $900,000. Don't quote me on that, but
sure.
It was nowhere near the value of the homes. This is one thing. Altadena has become one of those coveted cities where a lot of wealthy individuals in California have said, "Hey, man, we need to be living in Altadena. Look at the land. Look at how vast these properties are." And you have a lot of people who have been, just over the years, just selling their homes for, $2 and $3 million because that's the value of so many of the homes in Altadena. So many older individuals. There's a lot of older families, a lot of older individuals in Altadena who are holding on to their houses for their grandchildren and so forth and so on, just to have that generational wealth in their families who now have lost everything in a 24-hour period, who are now saying they can't rebuild. They can't come back from this.
Wow. I'm really sorry to hear this story, Tawala. You're somebody I've known for a long time, and your family and it just seems so overwhelming. How are you doing just mentally? Like, this seems like a real, like, devastating from the mental perspective to witness it, experience it, and then the long runway of the aftermath of it. How are you doing with your mental?
Good days and bad days, man. Good days and bad days. Good days in looking at my children and knowing that they're fine, looking at the fact that we do have some things we are able to save, photo albums and things like that. But I told one of my coworkers the other day that I feel like that line in Tracks My Tears, where people think I'm the life of the party just because I tell a joke or two. But if you take, a good look at my face, you'll see that my smile's just out of place. And if you look closely, you'll be able to see the tracks of my tears because I have to stay strong for my family. I have to stay strong for my mother. I have to stay strong for my brother. I have to stay strong even for the people that I'm working with in Altadena to try to maintain some level of Altadena pride. And it gets really, really rough. And there are those days where I kid you not, where I sit down on the bed at night and I just cry myself to sleep because so much is gone. I look at my entire life and everything that I grew up around, everything that I actually went back to my whole street the other day just to send some pictures to some of the homies that grew up there who aren't in California anymore. And they're just like, Bird, like that's what they call me, Bird. Man, it doesn't even look like the block anymore. And it doesn't. And that's, when I stand there and I look at that destruction, when I look at how much is gone, I feel the pain of my brothers and sisters in New Orleans, and what happened there with Katrina. And I look at how we looked at Katrina and how I look at Altadena and I think about how similar we are, how these Black neighborhoods that were once very proud neighborhoods are now gone, and how quickly the country forgets. I think about how once the cameras go away and once the concerts and all the help goes away, therein still is the people. And I think about that. It's hard not to. Sometimes I just keep myself moving, just because the minute I stop, I have to deal with it.
Yeah.
And that's how I'm handling it. That's the best way that I can to deal with this heartache and this pain and this loss, is to just keep moving. Just keep moving. Don't stop. Constantly be doing something to either bring awareness to be involved in the process of rebuilding, something to keep me sane. Something just to keep me sane, brother.
Well, the reason why we're doing this podcast is that we don't want to forget. And I couldn't think of another person to speak to first to launch the first episode, but you, and just this firsthand account of, what's happening out there. And as I was doing my research to just get information for this podcast, I noticed how slowed down the coverage has been of what's going on in Altadena and Pasadena. And we will be here to cover this story. We're making a long-term commitment to keep the communication flowing, and you will be one of the correspondents that we will lean on to tell us what's happening, so we don't forget for the rest of the country, so they understand what is happening there. And we'll leave some contact information for you in the show notes for the pod. So if anybody wants to get in touch with you or help you and your family, they can reach out to you directly. I'm really thankful that you took the time to speak to us, and thankful that you're willing to be a part of this podcast. And nothing but prayers for you and your family and your neighborhood and your friends and everyone affected by this fire. And we just we're going to keep praying for you and send positive thoughts and vibes. And if there's anything that we can do to help you or spread the word, if something is happening, you're going to be our person on the ground to tell the world what's going on, so we don't forget.
God bless you, brother. This means the world to me. It means the world to the city, to know that there are individuals that care, to know that a brother like yourself is helping us to keep the word out there. I know you know, but you have no idea what this means to me and means to the city, to keep the spotlight on what's happening and to make sure that we are not forgotten and to make sure that we rebuild and build back better, stronger than ever. God bless you, brother.
Thank you, man. And our founder, Kathy Hughes, is spearheading this whole campaign, and we're using all of our radio stations and TV One to really keep the word out so that people know that there is still a lot of trauma and there's a lot of healing that needs to happen in your neighborhood. So thank you, Tawala. We appreciate your support, and we look forward to your reports on this podcast.
Folks have lost their music equipment that they need to be able to perform in the industry.
Thank you for
We've
listening
had
to
families who
Altadena
have loved ones who lost their wheelchairs to walkers,
share it to help spread awareness.
You name it.
Coming up on
we
the
just
next
know
episode.
that families need everything in this time, and it's short term and long term.
To support those affected by the Eden Fire, consider donating to the Brotherhood Crusade's Wildfire Relief Fund at urban1cares.com. Your contributions provide essential resources like food, medicine, and housing assistance to families in need. If you have updated information or a first-hand story to share, we'd love to hear from you. Contact details are in the show notes. Altadena After the Fire is an Urban One podcast. Executive producer and host, Colby Colb. Assistant producer, Jahi Whitehead. Director of podcasting, Dre Smith. Special thanks to the Urban One Cares team and our founder, Kathy Hughes. Thank you for tuning in. See you next time.